This is basically a 1 hour session. So is it because it is a Saturday that we don't have much attendance? We just have about 6 people so far. I expected a lot of people actually. Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, Masuda, ma'am. So Anuradha, are you here, Anuradha?
Good evening, Ignatius. Laksh this side.
Hi, Laksh. Good evening. How are you?
Just going well. How about you, Ignatius?
I'm fine, thank you. Is Anuradha there in the meeting? No, no.
No, not yet, but I think she is joining soon.
Fine, okay. So, I mean, the session is between 4 and 5. Should we start? Or are you going to give an introduction? How does it work, Lakshmi?
Okay, just a minute.
So, Lakshay, do I need to keep the video on throughout the session? Is that how it works for the recording?
Hey, Ignatius, Anuradha is just joining by 2 or 3
Okay,
minutes, more than that.
okay.
Hmm.
Lakshay, I wanted to find out, should I keep the video on throughout the
Yes,
session
yes,
or in
yes.
case? Okay.
Ah. Okay, Ignatius, just a 2 and 3 minute. Sandeep is joining a call and he's going to open it. Okay.
Hello, teachers. Good evening.
Good evening,
Good evening,
sir.
sir. Good evening, sir.
Hi, Sandeep.
Hi,
Good
Ignatius.
afternoon.
Good evening. Good
Hello,
evening.
Sandeep. Good
So,
evening.
Good
just
evening, sir.
please hold on for a second, I would say. And
Okay.
I think let me first introduce our resource person today, and then we can follow. Should we wait for another 2-3 minutes, teachers? What do you suggest?
I think it's 4:10, Sandeep. We should start. I think once you give the introduction, I think we can go ahead.
Right.
Because it's a Saturday and I'm sure all of them must be
ஸ்பீக்கர் ஆஃப்
waiting to
பண்ணிருங்க.
finish this
யாரோ
session
ஒருத்தர் மட்டும் எடுத்துக்கோங்க.
and
2 பேர்
then go
இருந்தீங்கன்னா
for their cup
ஸ்பீக்கரை
of coffee.
டேப் பண்ணி அதை ஆஃப் பண்ணிருங்க. அடுத்தது ஆஃப் பண்ணிருங்க.
Okay.
Karpagam ma'am, if you could mute your volume.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes.
So let me take the privilege of introducing first the Headword company. In fact, Headword, as you know, it's not very old as far as Headword Publishing Company is concerned, but definitely since it's a part of ABP, it's a very well-renowned name. Headword Publishing Company is an ELT specialist and leading curriculum publisher. And it's a part of ABP Education, the education wing of ABP Group. ABP Education is trusted today by over 20,000 schools and reaches millions of students across India. Headword delivers curriculum as aligned textbooks, teacher resource books, digital learning solutions that empower teachers and that inspire today's learners. With research-driven pedagogy, structured lesson plan, and professional development, Headword ensures measurable improvement in learning outcomes. In programs aligned with NEP 2020, the National Curriculum Framework for Foundational Stage 2022 and NCF 2023, we consequently start working towards helping schools to achieve the national curriculum goals with confidence. So let me introduce today's resource person, Ignatius Kuriakose. Ignatius is a training facilitator, and he is a seasoned learning and developmental professional with more than 20 years of experience in conducting training programs in effective communication skills, soft skills, language training, personality development, and various leadership programs and public-related human resources programs. The last decade has seen him as an established service provider in the publishing industry, enabling educators to be impactful classroom leaders with his seasoned programs for them. He has a track record of providing successful learning and engagements through commitments and thoroughness. Ignatius has a specialization in human resources management from Loyola College, Chennai. He believes that effective communication leads to better and more efficient teamwork and improved business outcomes. Ignatius has offered workshops in schools, choice school, for example, Ernakulam Chennai Public School, Chettinad Vidyashram, National Public School, Velammal Group, Chennai, Mahatma School, Madurai, Mahindra World School, St. Joseph's School, Mysore, and various others. Modules include language teaching strategies, effective communication skills, drawing a successful lesson plan, classroom management, equitable and inclusive classroom, social and emotional learning, teaching methodologies, NEP, NCF, competency mapping, empowerment, creativity, and especially strategies, knowing your child, leadership programs, and definitely time management. Ignatius corporate clients include ICAI Pondicherry, Vodafone Citibank, Wipro, Computer Sciences Corporation, Chennai and Bangalore, PepsiCo, HPCL, Cognizant Technology Services, L&T, and Canara Bank, Aid Parry, HLL. So there are a number of companies, corporate organizations where Ignatius has served as a trainer. His training modules span English language skills, employee profiling, enduring initiative and commitment, customer service, conflict management, interpersonal skills, leadership and time management at the lower, middle, and senior level, at the senior level as well. Ignatius' other areas of training include career counseling, goal setting, employee profiling, enduring initiative and commitment, interpersonal skills, corporate survival skills, motivational skills, debate, success techniques, and stress management for both colleges and schools. So I heartily welcome our resource person, Mr. Ignatius, to take this session. And teachers, today we are very lucky to have Ignatius. Over to you, Ignatius. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandeep. That was a very long introduction. I hope I will do justice to today's session. Today, this particular topic, reading, is very, very close to my heart. The paradoxical reason is that I was someone who was never interested in reading for a very, very long period of time. So the fact that I've come so far is only because I slowly, very later in my life, develop the habit of reading. And here I am doing a session on reading as a very, very important skill. Teachers, needless to say, in our classrooms, there is never a day that goes without, reading as a very, very important skill. Okay, whether it is language or other subjects, we always come across experience. There is never a period where you have not read something for the students in the classroom that brings engagement. So with this, keeping this idea in mind, let us dwell into this particular workshop and see what are all the nuances of reading, how reading has transformed from traditional text reading to multiliteracies. We will clearly take you through all of these ideas and offer clarity. And then how reading as a very, very important skill would help develop productive skills like writing as well as speaking. So let me start sharing my PowerPoint presentation. Just give me a minute. So here, just give me a minute. I will close this. Okay. So reading reimagined is how I have captioned it. Reviving the most powerful receptive skill. Okay. So I think I already gave out this clue when I was on the slide mode. If we want, so teachers, basically how I want this session to be is, it's basically in the evening, it's tea time for us. I'm sure all of us would want to rest at home. We will try and make this session as interactive and as engaging as possible. So I seek your cooperation for this. So let's start with the first line, which says, if we want thinkers, then what do we need to do as teachers in the classroom? I've already started off with an engagement with you. If we want thinkers, then what do we have to do in the classroom? Any takers? Would you like to fill the blank? Anyone?
We want to ask questions, sir.
Okay, if we want thinkers, we want to ask questions. Okay. One more person? Anyone to try?
We have to give them some situations.
Okay. Okay, so basically this is a quote. If we want thinkers, we must first grow readers. And the successive slides will very, very clearly explain to us how thinkers became or have become thinkers only because they become good readers. So the objective of today's workshop, so if you're looking at reading per se is a vast ocean. I mean, I can go on for about 3 hours and the entire day talking to you about the different aspects of reading. But this, because we have a very, very short time frame, I thought I will dwell on these aspects, because when we are looking at, and these aspects also are kind of integrated with our classroom situations, right? So that's the reason I thought I'll take these 3 important ideas and we will look at these 3 ideas in depth. So first we are looking at 21st century skill, 21st century scale, which is critical thinking basically. So, needless to say what NEP talks about, definitely 21st century is important skill for all of us. I think there is a typo there. I'm sorry about it. It is actually 21st century skill. Okay. And in 21st century skill, we know about the 4 C's. What are we talking about? Here, our focus in the 4 C's is on critical thinking. So we have communication, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration. So now for our reading purpose, we are looking at critical thinking. How does critical thinking happen when we read? Multi-literacies, both print and digital. We will go into the detail of the various slides that we are going to see. We will definitely be able to have more clarity on that. And of course, social and emotional literacy. Okay, so now I'm going to again start off with another engagement. I'm going to ask you to type one word that describes students' reading habits. So here I'm looking at, let's presume that reading is not a very great, today's children and today's generation, we all know there's hardly any reading. Reading as a habit has degenerated. So keeping that into mind, I'm looking at it from a more and from a very negative aspect. When I say negative aspect, from the student's perspective, not from our perspective. So if I have to ask you to type one word that describes students' reading habits, what is that one word that you want to say? Either you can unmute and speak up, or if you want to type, you can type. Sandeep, I'm only able to see the entire screen. It's a full screen for me. I will not be able to see what the teachers are typing on the text area. So please let me know what they are typing. Or teachers, if you want to unmute and tell me one reading, if you're looking at students' reading habits, how do they come up to you? They seem to you, today's readers. How do they consider reading? That's what I'm asking. How do they consider reading? Any one word? Or maybe a set of words, anything. Today's readers, do they find reading boring? I'm not talking about everyone, but generally, in general. Do they find reading boring? Yes or no? Do they find it very long? So what are the other ideas that come into your minds when we ask students to read? What would they say? What would the students say? I gave you 3 clues. Anyone? Teachers, we want you to participate. The idea of this workshop is to have more engagement. Otherwise, if I start speaking, it becomes monologue. So please speak up and let me know if there is one word that you want to use, or if you want to tell me a set of words. How do students perceive reading today? I gave you 3 words, right?
Sir, actually, students bore from reading, and also they think this is a time-consuming activity for them.
Absolutely. For them, they feel it is time consuming, it is long, it's exhausting, it is boring, it is tiring. That's what they feel, right? Especially when it comes to their their class textbooks. Okay, whether it is subject or language. They find it voluminous. Okay, so these are the words that you can associate generally. Here I am giving you a list of ideas. Okay. Sometimes for them, they say, distraction. They feel impatient. They only want visual. They're not interested in reading. Sometimes it's hard for them because they don't understand. It's boring, tiring. Sometimes you're forced to read, right? At home, when we ask our children to take up, a lesson and ask them to read, or in the classroom, how do children find that? Interesting, boring, or are they being forced to read something? They're not interested, but then we are forcing them to read. So they might sometimes find it long, sometimes confusing because they don't comprehend what they read. And there is always this fear. Fear could be because of many reasons. Can you tell me one of the reasons why children should have the fear for reading? Why would they have the fear for reading? Anyone?
During reading, they did a mistake. That's why students are...
Yeah, if they do a mistake. Absolutely. If they don't know how to read, certain words are difficult, for them, they are scared. In front of the teacher, am I going to expose myself? So these are all the fears that they have, right? Marks and grades. So how do marks and grades affect reading? For example, if it's going to be a reading comprehension, okay, definitely you're going to assess them on the reading comprehension. They are worried about the marks that they are going to get because they are not very good at reading and comprehending. Okay, that could be one reason. Stress, okay, embarrassing sometimes because I don't know the right pronunciation. I'm not able to read like the way my friend reads. Okay, I'm not very fluent in reading. I'm not very confident about reading this text. All of those could be the reasons. Okay, so these are some of the negativities associated with reading. But what do you think, teachers, we should do to encourage students to read? What can we do? What should we do to encourage reading? How do we make reading interesting for them? What are the things that we can think of? Reading should become interesting. Then reading can also become, when does reading become more positive for a child? Anyone? How do we encourage reading in them? You don't have to say that in one word, even if you have to explain also. Give them the right book. Correct? I don't like to read all the books, but I like to read maybe comics, a comic strip. Okay?
They
I'm
can be
interested in
asked
reading
to
that.
read the book of their own choice.
Of their own choice. That's exactly what I was saying. So if I'm to ask to read a book of my own choice, then it becomes interesting. Okay. And so what happens to our academic books? I mean, at school subjects, language books, what will happen to them? So who plays an important role there? The teacher plays an important role. Sometimes children or students don't like to read. They don't want to read. They are bored to read. They are confused only because there is no clarity. So when it comes to reading our core subjects or information in our core subjects or with regard to language reading, what is most important is that teacher plays a role here and how the teacher is able to bring that engagement, make it interesting, make it more motivational and inspire students to, even if it is difficult, even if it is confusing, okay, offer clarity and bring about that engagement in the classroom. So these are the very positive ideas related to reading. Making reading inspirational, exploring as you read, making read more fun oriented. So basically here it depends on what you're reading. Of course, some children find, reading history and geography, the social science books, sometimes they find it a lot of fun because they are actually inclined to, reading social science because they are very good at it. They're more interested in it. So it could be that way also. It's interesting, enjoyable, sometimes adventurous. It depends on what book they read. Also growth oriented, knowledge. Every information that you take in is knowledge, is input, right? So all of these are ideas, and I'm not going to keep going into every word. Basically wanted to let you know how as teachers we can build in all of these ideas into our children. Curiosity, okay? Then, why does reading matter? I mean, needless to say, it builds vocabulary, basically brings in improved academic performance. The more they read, the more they understand. Or the more they read, and if they get confused, there is the teacher there to offer clarity. So from that confusion, when the teacher offers clarity, absolutely everything else becomes more clear for them. So they are able to enhance their academic performance, strengthens cognition, critical thinking, empathy. So when you come across a story and the story gives you a beautiful moral, and then you start kind of realizing that, okay, this is some value that I've learned from this particular story or from this particular text. Why can't I emulate this virtue in my everyday life? So it could also be born out of empathy. Okay, how the other person feels. Okay, and if you are able to feel how the other person feels, so empathetic reading also could help you become a better human being. Foundation for lifelong learning. Okay, when does learning stop, teachers? When does learning stop?
Never.
No. That? Forever. Yeah, I heard somebody say forever. Absolutely. Forever. So now let's go into what we read. Young readers do not merely read stories or text in there. So in the conventional sense, we are always looking at when every time when it comes to reading, it's about reading a text. I think there is a huge transitional change, a transformation that has happened in the manner and in terms of what we read and what are all the domains of reading that we have, different formats of reading that we get into. So they read a great variety of formats across subjects at school. It can also be academic or non-academic pieces of writing in printed books and magazines. What they read encompasses different cultures, the exposure to culture. Imagine you're reading a foreign novel, okay? The exposure to that particular culture and in what context you read and the various domains that you touch upon and issues, okay? So how we read is what is important today. How we read stands completely transformed today. How does it happen today? Okay, young readers increasingly read what? Both print and digital text. When they start reading print and digital text, okay, in non-linear way. What do we mean by non-linear way? The very traditional method is that if I have a language textbook or a subject textbook, or a subject book, and if I take a lesson and I start reading the text there, okay, that is a very linear fashion of reading. Non-linear is that, for example, let us say we are using a digital text. There is a hyperlink there. There is a news article there. There is an animation or a video there. So as we read, to get more clarity on what we are reading, we are clicking on the hyperlink, getting some information, okay, and then probably watching a PowerPoint presentation. And then finally, we come back to the text, which means all of these areas help our understanding of the text better. So they engage with verbal as well as visual text today. So visual text is also reading, picture reading as we call it, at a very, very young age, at the foundational stage, why we are looking at visual or visual literacy. Okay, visual literacy is basically about this, right? And that is why we need to inculcate the habit of picture reading at a very, very young age, at the foundational stage itself. Okay. Then basically, how does this whole process of reading happen? First and foremost, when you read a piece of information, you're decoding the information, you comprehend the information. Based on what you understand or comprehend, you come out with your own inference, okay? And you critically evaluate what you have. So you have come to a conclusion that this is what it means. And after that conclusion, maybe through a discussion, you further evaluate whether your conclusion or what you concluded is right or wrong, positive or otherwise. All of this you can do when you do your critical evaluation. So basically, reading involves this. In classroom observations, are we calling reading as a kind of a dying skill? I would kind of more or less agree. But today we have a lot of schools, at least because I'm from the south of India, I'm from Tamil Nadu. I can tell you there are many, many schools who are promoting reading in a very, very, very big way. Okay. So reading, those become a dying habit now, dying skill now. Today, what schools have done is have gone, really walked that extra mile and brought in and created a lot of initiative in encouraging reading in children, both in the classroom and outside the classroom. Okay. So what are all the types of reading that we are looking at? Loud reading, silent reading, guided reading, independent reading, critical reading, digital reading, and creative reading. Okay, all these are self-explanatory teachers based on the text that we read, the book that we read, what we need to. So all of this will depend on the book that we actually read. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a small activity. Either you can unmute and tell me. I have two-line sentence over here, a sentence that has 2 lines over here. I want you to tell me how many times the letter F appears. Sandeep, if you're there, you can read it out for me, the answer, whatever they are writing. Or if somebody wants to unmute and tell me, please tell me.
Yeah, sure. I think Nandini ma'am and Vaishali ma'am has raised their hands. Would you
Okay.
like to say something, Nandini ma'am and Vaishali
Yes.
ma'am? Or it is by mistake?
At least they can type the answers. Teachers, I want you to participate, please. Otherwise, it will become boring for you as well as for me. So please, if you're putting up your hands, I hope you understood the question. There are 2 lines over here. I'll read that out for you. Finished files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of many years. In these 2 lines, how many times does the letter F appear? Tell me.
Okay, Poonam ma'am says 3.
3 is it? Very good. Anyone else? That's interesting.
Lakshmi ma'am also 3.
From 3 is increased to 4. Okay. Anyone else?
Okay, Sheetal ma'am says 6.
Sir, 4.
Who said 6?
Priti ma'am. Sheetal ma'am, sorry.
Sheetal ma'am. Wonderful. Ma'am, I wish this was a face-to-face session. I would have at least given you a chocolate, but unfortunately I can't. Yeah, 6 is the right number. So, Sheetal ma'am, can you unmute and tell me where all this F appears in these 2 lines? Where all does the F line, the letter F appear? Are they able to unmute and speak, Sandeep, or is it becoming difficult for them to do that?
No, they can do it. They can.
Yeah, if they can unmute and tell me. Sheetal ma'am, you gave the right answer. Tell me in which words you find the letter F. Oh, what is happening?
Sir, shall I?
Yes, who's this? Yeah, tell me, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Finished in finished beginning. F sound is there. Like F
Great.
is there in file.
Yes.
File. First, in O, after word years, there is F. In the word scientific, there is a F. And in the last line, another of, there is another
Yes.
F. Total 6 F are there.
In the last line, which word? In the last line, which word?
In
The
last line,
second
yes.
line, which word?
Off.
Yes. Off. Very good. That is the right answer. It is not 3, it is not 4, it is not 5, but it is 6. Yeah. So now let us kind of try and understand why some said 3, some said 4 or 5 or whatever, though 6 is the correct answer. Basically what happens. So that is the right answer. So when we are looking at, reading per se, what do we actually focus on? What do we actually focus on?
Semantics.
Absolutely. Who said that? Sandeep?
Somebody said it's not written in the chat box.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. I'm Anuj Shanak from Oxford Green Public School. I'm PGT.
Wonderful. So why did some of them miss out on that many number of the letters? So basically, here the explanation that I can offer is the brain tends to skip small functions and it only looks at larger chunks. F, for example, of, the, to, all these are not important information for us to actually focus on. Our mind and our brain focuses on important words like finished, files, result, years, scientific, and so on. It may not give too much of importance because the mind is already conditioned to these common utterances, which is otherwise called all the articles, all the pronouns, all of these are common utterances. We don't give a lot of importance to that, right? We rather focus on those words that truly give the meaning. So we are more large chunk and we kind of ignore the smaller areas such as the words that I just mentioned to you. So in reading, what becomes more important is how much are we observing? So this is basically an activity to tell you how much of observation is there when we read a piece of information. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Sheetal ma'am, for the right answer. There we go. The various formats of reading. So this is reading beyond textbook. We have storybooks, very interesting, very illustrative, very colorful, very child-friendly, or it could also be reader-friendly also. It not be only child-friendly, it could be reader-friendly also. Okay. Then newspapers. Okay. How does, classroom reading transform us into actually readers who are able to connect with what is happening in the real life. So here we have newspapers. When I'm looking at a newspaper, what captivates or captures your mind first? When you are reading a newspaper, what captures your mind first?
Maybe the captions.
Absolutely, the headlines, right? The headlines. So what persuades you to read a newspaper article? What persuades you to read a newspaper article? Basically the headline, right? If the headline, because we look at the headline and the headline is interesting. Okay.
Some of
That
the
is one.
answers are the pictures.
Pictures. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes the pictures, when we have a graphic representation, we are also persuaded, rather become more curious to find out what does the article talk about. Okay. So it could be the caption, the headlines, or it could also be the graphic that is there in the picture that persuades us to read that particular article. Okay. How do we comprehend that? What about graphic novels? I'm sure there's not one among us who has not read a comic book. Yeah. They're very, very graphic. You see the speech bubbles over there. Very interesting piece of information. They're they could be funny, it could be interesting, it could be mystery, anything, all the genres that it covers. And there is not one of us over here who has not read a comic strip. Okay, graphic novel. So teachers, initially when I spoke to you about the objectives, I spoke about multi-literacies. I hope all of you are able to recall the term multi-literacies. All of whatever I'm covering over here is part of multi-literacies. We are not only looking at print, we are not only looking at digital, we are not only looking at, animation, video, in any form of it is blog, anything, all of these form part of the multi-literacies. Infographics. What is the speciality of the infographics? It tells you the entire story. It has visual appeal. Okay. It has very crisp information which completely tells you the entire story. It's in the graphic form as well as text form. And that's why we call it infographics. What about blogs? Okay. Blogging, of course, today with the young readers, I think probably has become a little outdated. They get into more, savvy ideas like, there are other intuitive ideas for them. But when we are looking at blogging as part of multi-literacies, we are looking at how these pieces of information can be helpful for us to take decisions. For example, if I need to buy a telescope, okay, I need to make informed decisions, right? So here we have some information with regard to that. And then how to choose the right hotel. Let's say I'm going to a foreign country, or let's say I'm going to Delhi. Okay, I did have this a challenge when I traveled to Delhi about a couple of months back. I did not know which hotel to choose. I had to ask friends, and each one gave their own perspective about, it will be like this, you can go to this area, look for this kind of, or you go by the rating, this is what is said. But then blogs help us also understand and take informed decisions. So how to choose the right hotel when you are traveling. Then, of course, another blog that talks about a place, a mall, is a place, a mountain area, a tourist spot, a helicopter tour. So these are all part of blogs, part of infographics, instructions, and manuals. All of these that we come across in our everyday life. So how does it transform our children, the reading habits in our children? Basically transforms them into informed decision makers. When it comes to buying, for example, here we have instruction manual for, okay, the nutritive information here on any food that we buy, on food packets that we find, or on a tin, okay? Then what information is this? Okay, when we read this information, how do we understand? How do we synthesize? How do we decode this information? Okay, and then when we look at a weather report, okay, how do we decode information from there? Timetables, advertisements. Advertisements, what kind of reading is advertisements? When we look at advertisements, what captivates our eye? What is the first impression, or what is the first feel that we get when we look at these kind of advertisements? What captures our mind or our eyes?
So maybe the pattern of the logo.
Logo, okay. But when you look at an advertisement, are you looking at the logo?
No, it's just one way of
Price.
Okay. What?
So the prices also
Pardon?
is price.
Absolutely, price. Okay. Here, the moment I saw this advertisement, the first thing that I saw was that captivated my eye was the sale. Okay. All of us look for this, right? During festive seasons or off season or whatever, we all look at. So basically, this is what, captivates our eyes the moment we look at an advertisement. Look at this. What in this particular advertisement, what becomes catchy, what becomes persuasive for you? What will enable you to buy this product? I'm talking about the yellow label over here, the advertisement. What would enable you to buy this product?
Some of the answers include packaging, offers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look at the third one. Which product is this? Sandeep, you want to take a guess?
Oh, yes, absolutely right.
Yeah.
KFC.
So the moment that's what I'm saying, no? I mean, who will miss this out? Any nook and corner of India that you go, will there be a place without KFC? And look at the caption that they have, the slow caption that they have given over here. It's finger licking good. I mean, who will not be persuaded to go to KFC? Okay. See, basically what we are looking at over here is we are doing picture reading. In picture reading, what we are actually doing is the person who's advertising that, the main agenda is persuasive reading, persuading somebody to buy something or to go to a particular place, right? So persuasive reading, as we call this. Then, of course, our famous popular poetries. So reading formats beyond textbook, which format do your students rarely read and why? In all of what we showed you, which is the format that students rarely read? Advertisement, yes, once in a way they come across. Okay, let me just go back. Poetry, maybe they're not too interested, okay, because it calls for a lot of inner meaning, deep reading. Poetry is not skimming, teachers, isn't it? It is more of deep reading to have an understanding of what the poem is all about, what the author's perspective is all about. So I don't know if students would be too keen on reading poetries, but then they would be persuaded to go through this. Timetable, whether they like it or not, yes. So quite often, I don't know how many of us are students, when they come out of the classroom in their everyday function, how well informed they are when it comes to these pieces of information, especially when you are at a, when you are walking, when you are driving, okay, when you come across these kind of signboards, how is that you understand? How is that you infer? How is that you decode information? What did you understand? Okay, all of these has got a lot to do with how children comprehend and understand and infer ideas. Similarly, with weather report also. Of course, the moment we say 22 degrees centigrade, that kind of gives us an idea as to how cool or warm the temperature is. So, of course, this is not rare. More often, they come across, especially when they want a holiday, they look if it is a rainy day and it's going to rain heavily. Yeah, blogs, as I told you, slightly outmoded, but yes, students sometimes go through this. Infographics is only they are required to do a project or something of some academic importance. Otherwise, I don't see a reason why they would dwell into infographics, or it could be other areas of their interest. I'm talking about non-academic reading. Graphic novel, of course, yes, it's not rare, common. Newspapers, I don't know how many of our children are into the habit of reading newspapers. It could be rare, depends on the student, but by and large, newspaper reading has actually degenerated, has dwindled. It's come down. Storybooks, if you are in the habit of reading books, and of course, it is not a rare idea to read storybooks, definitely you read that more often. Okay, so now let's get into this. We talked about persuasive reading, inferential reading. We looked at multiliteracies, and we looked at a lot of examples for that. Now let's look at the missing word. Let's see who can fill this word. The boy opened the cage, and the bird dash
flew away.
Very good. Is that the only word? Can we be a little more creative? Flew away is the right answer. Anything else? Any other word? Can I say escaped away? That's possible, right? Yeah. Okay, flew away is the right answer. Let's see what are all the other possibilities, because it need not always be one possibility. There can be more than one possibility. So the answers, it could be flew away, escaped away, or it could also be flapped away. But I'm asking you, can I say the boy opened the cage and the bird swam away? Is it possible? Definitely it's not possible, right?
No,
Because
no, sir. No, sir.
absolutely. So it's not possible because in the context, this is what is called contextual reading and also predictive reading. It's contextual reading and predictive reading. Definitely in the context of talking about a bird, I can't definitely say swim or swam away. I definitely can't say that, right? So in predictive reading, because we have certain inputs, okay, it helps us to come to a kind of a logical conclusion as to what could be the right answer. So all of these possibilities are right, but definitely our logical reasoning doesn't permit us to say swam away. Then, so examples of multiliteracies, some more, okay? All of these we saw in the form of the various graphic information that I showed you. So let's look at this particular paragraph. I'll just give you 10 seconds. Okay. Read this and I'm going to ask you a question. 10 seconds. Okay. What is this paragraph about?
Tigers.
Tiger. Very good. What is this paragraph about? This paragraph is about the tiger. So now let's come to what is called paragraph reading. In paragraph reading, what is it that you want to elicit? What is it that you want to deduce, or what is it that you want to take at the very first instance? When you read a paragraph, what is it that you want to pick up at the very first instance when you read the paragraph?
When we are reading the one or two sentence towards it, we will find the continuation of it and understanding about the context. First few lines.
So
Yeah.
when you read the entire paragraph fast, I only gave you 10 seconds. You just had to glance through, right? You were literally skimming through the idea. Okay. So when you just read the entire paragraph, you did not go into the detail. Did you? Did you go into the detail to get the answer? No.
No.
All that I asked you is, what is this paragraph about? And you told me it talks about the tiger. So when we are looking at a paragraph and what this particular paragraph has to convey, we are only looking at the main idea. Every paragraph has what is called a main idea, and every main idea is supported by other information. So you have a main idea, and that is supported by the main idea is supported by pieces of information that comes thereafter. That's basically skimming, as we call it. We are only glancing through information. We are just glancing and you get an idea. For example, newspaper articles that we read, that could also be skimming. Okay. So skimming, a very, very important reading skill, a reading style, a reading technique. Okay. And then how we are looking for a main idea. So when we have large pieces of information and we just want to kind of have a very brief representation or an idea of what we have actually glanced through or gone through, then we are looking at the main idea, which this technique of reading is called skimming. Then we were looking at information in general, what happens to us in our real life when we actually experience or go into our real life, functional reading as we call it. We saw a lot of information. And if all of those skills and if all that was possible, it only started from the classroom. I should have actually done this and then gone into that. I'm reversing the whole idea. Okay. We looked at all this. And if we have to be adept, skilled, okay, and if we were able to deduce information from all of the kind of information, and wherever we go, whatever we read, then it all starts from the classroom. So we will see a few examples of how it happens in the classroom with regard to our subjects. Can anyone read this? Okay, I'm just giving a sentence. I already showed you the sentence. Is there one volunteer who can unmute?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Ma'am, your name, ma'am?
Myself, Nandini.
Okay, ma'am, just read this. I'll just give you 2 seconds. Just read this.
Okay. English, Paris in the spring.
You hesitate. You did hesitate. First you told me Paris in the spring, didn't you?
Yeah. Of course, sir. Sorry for that. Paris in the spring.
Yeah. It's actually Paris in the spring. Okay. How did this happen? Can anyone tell me how this happened? What should have been the actual answer? What ma'am said, no? Later, how she corrected herself by saying Paris in the spring. But what have I written over here? What is written there? Paris in the spring. See, we are so conditioned to reading, as I told you, when you, if you remember that finished files, that sentence that I spoke about, when we are looking at larger chunks, okay, the smaller chunks become oblivious. That is one. And when we read, we are conditioned to read what we want to read and the rest we ignore. Because we are so used to reading, Paris in the spring. Can you imagine, sitting and reading a text where it says Paris in the spring? No, because we're not conditioned to reading that, right? So we only read what we want to read. Okay, so that is basically the idea over here, and how our mind gets conditioned to that kind of information and when we read. Okay, so basically ma'am read Paris in the spring first, but though later she corrected, but a sentence actually has to the. We often see what we expect. That's what we expected. Yeah, but that did not happen. Okay, so basically, when we are looking at this, what is expected is what we want to see, and the rest we ignore. Okay, reading across subjects. Now, I want you to tell me whether this is a math problem or a reading problem. Okay, Ria has 12 mangoes. She gives 5 mangoes to her friend. How many mangoes does she have, or how many mangoes are left? What is the answer? It's a very difficult question.
No, I think Ria has 6 mangoes left.
Ria has 6 mangoes left. How did you come to that conclusion, ma'am?
It's like something that it's the question is about how many mangoes that she have left, right?
How many? Okay. How many mangoes she has left? Okay.
So in that way, she gave 5 mangoes to her friend. So remaining maybe the 6, I guess. 6, 7.
She gave only.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so you are saying 7, is it? Okay. Now, this is I'm asking you the question that it's not about solving this problem, but the question that I've asked is this a math problem or a reading problem? Okay. Now, let me go to the next one. The same question. Ria had 12 mangoes. She shared 5 of them with her friend Meera. How many mangoes remain with Ria? Is it a math problem or reading problem?
7, sir. Now Ria have 7 mangoes only.
Yeah, earlier also Ria had 7 mangoes only. Here also Ria has 7 mangoes only.
At first question, she has 12 mangoes.
Okay. In the second question?
Second question, 7. 7, sir.
Same,
in second
right?
question.
It is the same, right? So, my question to you is this a math problem or a reading problem?
It's a reading problem, sir.
It is a reading problem. Okay. Here, the child, when we read, when we are conditioned, if it is a math problem or a story sum, what do we expect in the story sum? We expect this, right? We expect this, right? Okay. In a story sum, that's typically what we expect. Okay. But what if it is like this? It takes a little while for us to decode this information, right? So it is a math problem. There's no doubt about it. There is no two ways about it. But how do we decode information is what this objective is all about. This entire question is all about. So when we decode information, here we are able to decode it easier. It becomes a typical math problem because we have numbers given as numbers, but here we have numbers given as words. So it is more of a reading and understanding problem. Okay. When we have a math problem which has story sums, it not only has numbers, but it also has words that make up the context of the particular sum or the problem. So it becomes more of a reading problem. Why? I need to read and comprehend what is being given in that particular story sum. So that is the real challenge over here. Read and understand before solving. So we discussed this. Okay, let's look at science, an example from science. Plants make their own food using sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. What is this process called? I'm asking you a simple question.
Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis. Okay. Photosynthesis. Now, answer is simple. I mean, class 3 child will be able to answer this question. Now, based on this statement, you came to this conclusion. Okay? Based on this statement, you came to this conclusion. What kind of reading took place here? Based on this, you came to that conclusion. If you are looking at the reading, how the reading process happens, decoding. Okay. How does the reading process happen? Decoding, comprehending, then critical evaluation, inferencing, and then critical evaluation, right? We decoded this, understood this, and as a result of this understanding, you are able to say it is photosynthesis. This is called inferential reading. What we are inferring from this reading. So most of us who understand, who know what this is, are able to infer that this could be the right answer. So this becomes inferential reading. Conceptual understanding basically is what we are talking about. Finally, here is a question in social studies. So I am looking at a reading not only for language. So many of us sometimes all of this idea that reading means it's about language. No, reading is across subjects. Okay, and that is precisely the reason, teachers, why I have taken examples from across subjects. Here is one example from social studies. The Indus Valley civilization developed near rivers. I mean, so if I have to make this statement, is it true? And how do we justify it? Why? The Indus Valley civilization developed near rivers. Why do we say so?
It may be called as a demographic process, or the demographic location where the origins was created, like that.
Okay, you are somewhere close to giving me the right answer. The demography. What is special about this demography? I mean the geography, not the demography. Sorry, the geography. That particular area. What is special about that? I'm asking you the question why. I just made a statement over here. The Indus Valley civilization developed near rivers. What do you think could be the reason? Why? You are correct about the geography, but then can you be a little more specific? Do we have social science teachers here? I think the moment they said reading, probably only the language teachers came to attend the session, I guess. But yeah, reading, as we understand, is across all subjects. Quickly, I think we are well past our time. Of course, we did start 15 minutes late, but quickly, why did Indus Valley civilization develop near rivers? Basically, rivers were what? The source of So are rivers an important source for us to meet our everyday life needs? So what is the conclusion we come to? This basically what we are looking at over here is critical literacy. What is critical literacy? I just made a statement and I'm asking you the question why. Based on the statement, what is the critical word that I am looking at here? Rivers. Wherever there were rivers, civilization started there. Why? Because humankind was dependent on water. Water is an important source for our everyday life. So the justification or the reason that you want to give. Basically, so we would, in our 21st century skills, look at this as critical thinking. This is critical thinking, which is critical literacy in terms of making the child understand why is that civilization happened near the rivers. Why not in the middle of the forest? Because water being an important source of input for humankind. Simple. So why did early civilization settle near rivers? So this is the question that I asked you. What is expected of the child? It could be commonsensical, or it could be born out of the reading that you've already done with regard to that particular text. Okay. But if it is commonsensical, the moment you look at the word rivers, you will be able to tell us why civilization happened near the rivers. How students are able to infer the reasons. So reading is not just an English skill alone, teachers. It is the gateway to learning in every subject. So as we are coming, close to completing our session, how do we bring in or build in this reading culture? What are we doing in our classrooms to promote reading? In our schools to promote reading? What are the initiatives we are taking? All of you are from very different schools across India, right? I don't know which state and which part of India all of you are from. But then in your own schools, do you all give a lot of importance for reading? Do you look at reading as an important receptive skill? And do you think that this receptive skill will lead to productive skills like speaking as well as writing? Without reading, there is no input. Okay? There is no input. Without input, there is no output. So completely we understand. So I'm asking you in your own small or little ways as teachers, how do you make efforts in your schools, in your respective schools or in your classrooms to promote reading? Have you all done anything? Are you all doing anything in your classrooms, in your schools? Can we have few answers from teachers, please? You can unmute and speak, please. Sandeep, is there anyone who is wanting to answer?
No, not yet.
Maybe you can randomly, call out to some teachers and then ask them, because we're almost at the close of the session. If somebody wants to, give their ideas with regard to how we can promote reading in our classroom or in our schools, what initiatives have we taken? There is something called, I think CBSE, I remember some time back, came out with this initiative called 100-day reading. Okay. And then there are some schools that talk about, like, I recently participated in a reading. I was there as a guest where students did an exercise on book review. Basically, it was the topic was cover to cover, and they came out with their own ideas. They picked up a novel, they read through the novel. They were asked to give their own review about the novel in terms of characters and all of the other ideas. So this is one way in which the school is promoting reading inside and outside the classroom. So does your school promote reading in a big way? Because we clearly understand at the end of the session that how important reading becomes not only for language but also for other subjects. What initiatives do you take? You will make use of your library? Do students make use of the library? There is no answer. Teachers?
I think teachers are already exhausted. They might be coming from their schools, returning
Fine,
back.
no problem. So
Yeah.
basically,
No, it's not like that, sir. Sir, hello. Sir, it's
Yeah.
not like it's not like exhausted. The thing is, it's actually the very right question they asked to us, like how to enhance the reading habits to the students, right? So before that, I just want to have a question regarding how can we implement the students to get into that habit.
Okay. So when we went through this entire exercise, when I told you how do we get into the habit of get the student into the habit of reading, somebody told give them the right book, the choice of book that they want to pick up. Okay, so there begins your reading habit. It need not be your academic books. Just give them the right book. First, get them into the habit of reading. Reading means sitting in one place, okay, processing information, whatever it be. Okay, it could be a comic strip, it could be a novel, it could be a small light reading, it could be a small short story book, it could be anything. What are they interested in? So how do we find out their interest? Only by questioning them, by asking them questions. I'm sure all of us as teachers know our students very well in the classroom. Okay, the more we start questioning, the more we start asking questions, the more we get to know about the students and their likes and dislikes, what they want to, what they're inclined to, what they're not inclined to. Okay, so give them. So I'll tell you one example of how this particular school in Chennai went about with this reading promotion. What they did was they took three school buses full of children. There was a book fair that was happening in Chennai. They told them, today there is no class, absolutely. We are taking you to the book fair. So they took them to the book fair. They asked all of these students to go and pick up for the school library books of their choice. It is not that the school picked up or the school teachers picked up or the principal or the correspondent picked up. They were asked to go to the book fair and they were asked to go and pick up books that they liked, books of their choice. And of course, they were given a budget, like 1,000 or 10,000. Each class was given 10,000 as a budget, within which they had to pick up few books. And what did they pick up? They picked up books of their choice, whether it was novels or short reading or whatever else. They picked up that. Now, this is what they told them. They picked up the books, they came, they put them in the library. Now, it didn't stop that. So, they picked up books of their choice, right? So, now, the next level, the improvisation on that was, they were asked to, as a team, as a group, okay, they were segregated into groups, and they were asked to pick up those books that they picked up from the book fair and asked to do a book review, right? So how did we do this? We never forced a book on them. There was no fear over here. They were inspired by reading book of their choice. They picked it up on their own accord. Nobody forced them. So now the moment we give them the freedom, the liberty, the choice to do that, automatically the habit comes in. Ma'am, I am a classic example of that. I was never into reading until one day one of my friends asked me that, why is that, I mean, your language seems to be good. Why is it you're not into the habit of reading? I said, I simply don't know. It is boring for me because every time I look at a book, it is voluminous. It's so many pages. I really don't know. The moment I start reading, I look at the number of pages. Then slowly, my friend asked me, what is that you like to read generally, if at all? Any discussion? What kind of discussion you want to have? I said spirituality. I like to talk about spirituality. So you know what my friend did? He went and picked up a small, short 100-page book on Khalil Gibran. Okay, a Sufi philosopher, if I'm right. So he picked up that book and gave it to me. I started reading. That my reading never stopped. Someone who was, and when did I start this reading habit? Just 20 years back. I don't want to tell you my age now, but then 20 years back, I started the reading and it never stopped. So at the end of the day, ma'am, It is basically leaving the choices to them. Once we get them into the habit of reading, slowly it can come to reading books across subjects or across language, or they will start. Once they get that, become more patient in trying to process information, automatically they get into the habit of reading. I hope that is convincing for you, ma'am. Nandini, ma'am. I can't hear you. I don't know if you're unmuting and speaking to me, but I can't hear you.
Sir, I have a question regarding reading.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
So my question is, what to do when there is a language barrier? Like generally we face, like we ask them to read in Hindi or in English, but the problem is that they understand only their local language. So what to do in that time?
So basically, are you trying to promote English as reading, or are you trying to promote reading itself? See, if language is a barrier for them, I mean, I'm sure for them to go and read a book in another language, for example, English, definitely it would be a challenge for them. But here, the idea is, I mean, the basic premise of the workshop is, how do we motivate them to read? Be it their mother tongue, I mean, be it their local, I mean, if it is a Hindi book, or if it is a Tamil book that I want to read, a novel, I mean, the basic idea is to enabling them to read, encouraging them to read. Then comes the next challenge of reading a book which may not be of their native language, a foreign language, which is English. Definitely and obviously, it is not an easy task. Okay, it is a time-consuming task. It happens gradually, but it happens certainly. So the moment they are into that, so what I'm presuming from what you're saying is that these people read, but for them reading an English novel or a storybook becomes difficult, or reading English across subjects or their books become difficult. That is a different case altogether. What we are...
I'm also talking that they are also having problem in Hindi.
Oh, reading itself, ma'am. So I think the solution for your question is what I already gave in the first instance when she asked me, how do we habituate them into reading? Basically, when I asked you the question, the moment we talk about reading in classrooms, okay, what do children feel? Boredom, I told you, all of those words that I told you. And how do we encourage? Give them the right book, give them a book of their choice. So if they like about movies, if they like about, if it's entertainment, there are so many genres, no man. There are so many different types of reading that we have. I mean, today there is so many varieties in reading. It's just not about traditional text alone. WhatsApp information. WhatsApp need not always be negative information. There's a lot of informative, ideas that you get. So basically, it is just slowly and gradually inculcating the idea of looking at pieces of information and slowly, nudging them. How we nudge them, how we encourage them into that is, it has to come from their self-interest, and how we bring about the self-interest is by making them make the choice, instead of us making that choice. Generally, if you go and look at our libraries, of course, we have books of various, from subjects to novels to mysteries to different genres we have. But when a child has to go to the library, what kind of book will he pick up? But before that, how can be habit of reading in them? That is why I said, make sure that you ask them to pick a book of their choice. And of course, needless to say, unless the child has been at a very, very young age, and unless we inculcated this habit into the children at a very young age, it becomes a little difficult, but it can be mooted at any point, at any stage in your life. Like, for example, I gave my own example, provided we give the book of his choice or her choice with her or with him. That's how it happens. I hope that is convincing. Yeah. So when we are looking at reading as an assessment tool, so assessment, assess comprehension depth. So the typically assessment is not only for writing, also for reading. For vocabulary growth, we can assess. For critical questioning, we can assess. And we can use rubrics instead of only scores to assess reading. Our teacher action plan, 1 reading habit to start tomorrow, 1 habit to stop, 1 new reading format to introduce. Would you be able to, some points based on this? 1 reading habit to start tomorrow. So if you have to inculcate the habit of reading in them, can you tell me about 1 reading habit that you would like to start off with the children? Like the example that I gave you. Basically, ask them questions, find out their likes and dislikes, their areas of interest, and then build this habit in them. That's exactly what we say, 1 reading habit to start tomorrow. Okay, where they can sit at a place where the more questions we ask, the more we find out what their interests are, the better we are able to place the right book on their lap. What is the 1 habit to stop? To encourage reading. There are many habits that we can talk about. Okay. Avoiding the use of, keeping away the
mobile phones.
Absolutely. Okay. Telling them or persuading them by telling them you can use your mobile phone maybe for 10 minutes, provided you promise me that you will read this particular book or this whatever and then come back to me. So that is also persuasive. Then 1 new reading format to introduce. So teachers, as I told you, today we are not talking about reading in the traditional text format. I spoke to you about multi-literacies. Okay. Everything. You're watching a video, you're reading. You're looking at a picture, you're reading. You're looking at infographics, that is reading. You're looking at a graph, you're reading. You're looking at a pie chart, you're looking at some data, you're reading. All of these are reading. And all of these are the kind of ideas alongside our text that we can integrate with our learning text. Any concept that you're introducing, okay, graphs, charts, okay, we are talking about many other ideas when we teach our subjects, when we teach our math, science, social science. How can we integrate all of these various formats of reading to enable the concept understanding in our children in the classroom? So teachers, I think I've taken much of your time. It's, I think, 15 minutes past the scheduled time. Of course, we did start 15 minutes late. I hope I have, to an extent, brought some clarity with regard to the importance of reading as a very, very receptive skill in the classroom, and how this receptive skill enhances and develops 2 very, very important productive skills, namely speaking as well as writing. I hope this session was of some value, and you are able to go back home and reflect upon how we can bring and revive the habit of reading in our classroom through our subjects and also through our language reading program. So teachers, if you have any further questions, please feel free to ask me. Otherwise, I'll ask Mr. Sandeep to close the session for the day.
Some of the teachers are asking for the feedback form, and most of the comments, as I can see here, the session was very, very interesting. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Are we giving some kind of feedback form, or should I give it the feedback form as well?
So, Mr. Sandeep, from my end, I don't have a feedback form.
Fine.
So
I'll provide that. Right. So that brings us to the end of the session. Dear educators, colleagues, and fellow learners, we are really honored to have shared this space with you today. Your energy, enthusiasm, and dedication to shaping young minds is truly inspiring. We are grateful for the opportunity to contribute to your growth and, in turn, witness your impact on countless students. Thanks, Ignatius, sir, for your enlightening presentation. Thank you for entrusting us with this platform. Thank you for active participation and commitment to excellence. And to the students past, present, and future, thank you for being our greatest teachers. So I will just quickly share before you leave. I'll just share the QR code with you so that you can send your feedback accordingly.
Thank you very much, Divya, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess you can see the QR code.
Thank you,
Yes.
Karpagan.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Nandini, ma'am.
This is Nandini from Chennai, sir. Actually, the session was quite very much informative. You brought out all the types of reading parts regarding the critical thinking, the intentional learning, and all these things. I think it is not quite possible within a single day or within a single session that we cannot able to make it out. But it's quite very impressive that you made it, and we could able to see how much of involvement that you really had in that. So that is really a very great thing that we could able to see. I am very much blessed to attend this session, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm so humbled. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting a feedback. You cannot see the QR code. Can you all see the QR code?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so ma'am, I think some problem with your video maybe. So even if you cannot see, some of you cannot see the QR code, you can take from the concerned salesperson. They will give you the QR code and we will send you the certificates accordingly.